Good afternoon, everybody. So, before others join, if those who have joined, if you have any doubts to be clarified, you can ask. Any general doubts? So, shall we start?
So please wait for 1 minute, sir.
Okay. Ah. So, shall we start?
Yes. Yes, sir.
So, in the last class, we started on the directing function. So, directing function of management. So, review, like any management endeavor starts with planning, then organizing things, then coordinating, and then last but one is the directing function, in which we talk about how to motivate people under you, under an executive, how to drive people to work for you. But in the process, see, there are, you can use, you can motivate people through positive means and negative way to get your things done. Like, for example, if you look at the ancient history, most of the work used to be done through slavery. But in modern times, in modern organizational setup, you are supposed to use only positive motivators. Positive motivators, that too, where there is a mutual benefit. What we call it as a win-win situation. The employee should be happy to give his 100% to the for the achievement of the organizational objectives. At the same time, you should help the organization also to prosper. So, like you have to, as a manager, as a leader, or CEO, or foreman, or wherever there is a boss, you should try to motivate people under him, so that they give their best. So, but here, unfortunately, it's not so simple, because here human needs are very complex. Complex in the sense, like as we have seen in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, they sometimes follow a hierarchy, they may not follow a hierarchy. All right. So, how to drive people, how to motivate people? Like, for example, how to motivate people like you who are attending my class. So, that again depends on that motivation depends on so many factors. Like sometimes we have to give sometimes of some incentive to the class in the form of right, the form of putting the uh, questions which reflect the people who carefully listen to the class, putting that kind of questions, or making indirectly asking them to like see, you have to, your lecture should be in a way where it is not just produced from textbooks. Like you infuse people, you give them proper examples, right? So anyway, so we in the last class, the motivation that is drive to do something, it starts with the needs, and that needs may be physiological needs or sometimes psychological needs. So and these needs convert into wants, and then anyway, this process has been explained to you by Professor Marmouti before. So the very, I told you now, like if you don't have any needs, any kind of needs, either physiological or motivating that guy is a bit difficult. Like I gave the in the last class now, like those who take sannyasi, like who renounce worldly things. How to motivate that guy? Probably like he may be more like or a vagabond or a mentally challenged person. Like you can't motivate that guy, no? Like because he doesn't know what his needs are also sometimes. Right? So anyway, now because there is a lot of bit of confusion, like what motivates him, people, people, different psychologists, sociologists, and psychologists, they have come with different kind of human motivational models. So anyway, we in the last class we discussed the classical model, that is characteristic, and then we have followed we discussed about Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory, where as per Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory, he says that the human motivation goes in a hierarchy. If like those who doesn't, those who are stranded in a desert, he'll be desperately looking for food, water, and shelter. So you can, by providing those simple physiological needs, you can motivate that guy, right? So even like if he's stranded in a desert, but once if those needs are, if the guy is taking is those needs for granted, that means he has a he has the food, he has water, and then shelter. And if you want to motivate that guy, then you provide him the next level of hierarchy of needs. That is, you guarantee him that he will have a good access to facilities, permanent employment, and then ability to make some property, some social activity, social stability. All right. So you may motivate that guy. Like for example, most of the people from Syria, Afghanistan, they are going from these to Europe by hook or crook, or some Latin American people trying to enter into American soil, USA. They have a lot of issues, no? Because even the basic first two needs are not being satisfied there. There is no guarantee of safety, right? So, but whereas in countries like India, almost like the physiological needs are well taken care of, almost. So, if you want to motivate these people, like you provide the guarantee of employment, continuity in the employment, and you should able to make some property, right? So if those needs are also satisfied, like if you want to really motivate, then provide the next hierarchy of needs. So that is affiliation needs, we call it as. That is, in other words, love and belongingness. So that is friendship, family, intimacy, sense of connection, right? That's why most of the corporate people, like NTPC, PHEL, they provide a lot of these affiliation needs to engage them productively even after outside the office hours, like having this some kind of entertainment, some club activities, occasionally conducting some tournaments. You know, like for example, like if you take Google, Google provides a lot of in-house entertainment, so that if that guy gets bored, he can play big chess models. He play with like life size chess pieces, and he can play with his team. Some kind of the kind of ambience. Like if you visit the headquarters of Apple or Google, they don't look like real offices. They create a situation of like where you may feel that it is no more an office, right? So that love and belonging, like suppose if those needs are satisfied, and if you want to motivate that guy, then provide the next hierarchy of needs, like confidence, achievement, respect of others, need to be a unique individual, right? Self-esteem, like that means self-esteem means mostly promotions. Then, like for example, one might be aspiring, like if he is an assistant professor, he will crave for getting promotion as associate professor, then hack professor, then director. Like why people like everyone wants some kind of wants to be an unique individual where he can he wants to mold an institution itself. Why our you take our own director, like he has a he wants to be unique by taking this institution in a to a right. So like and after that again the next hierarchy of needs is self-actualization, and this is about morality, creativity, spontaneity, acceptance, experience, purpose, meaning, and the inner potential, right? So actually the highest hierarchy of need as per Maslow's is self-actualization. That means here at this stage he is no more worried about whether somebody is recognizing him or not, but he does a particular thing because he feels there is a urgency of doing it. Like people like Mother Teresa, most of the social workers, belong to this. Like I told you about the Dasarath Maji, and, Mother Teresa, Anna Hazare, Baba Amke, or Lok Satta founder Jay Prakash Narayan. Like all these people, they they are doing it not like Medha Patkar, Vandana Shiva. Most of these people are on a mission mode. They feel that like they may be they are working because they want to bring some kind of morality, and there are certain people who do it for the sake of doing it. It's not that somebody is driving them, right? So they like like you see certain people like Bear Grylls. That guy is a very adventurous guy. Like um, they have their own inner drive to do something, and most of the even the best researchers, like if you take a guy like Zahn Strausstrup, anybody knows who is Zahn Strausstrup? Huh?
Inventor of C++.
Hmm? Who? Zahn Strausstrup. If you take Zahn Strausstrup, who is the guy who invented C++, Zahn Strausstrup, he did self-actualization. Like he thought like existing languages like C++ or C or Fortran are not realistic languages. So he wants to develop a robust language which is needed reality. So that's why applying object-oriented programming, he developed this C++ language when he was recruited in that famous Bell Labs. In fact, like if you look at Bell Laboratories, which is the research arm of AT&T, most of the researchers who worked for Bell Labs, they were actually working at the self-actualization level. They are no more motivated by power, position, the belongingness, nothing. They are they have a single-minded devotion that I should do this. The guy who invented laser, the guy who invented semiconductor transistor, they're all people on a mission mode, right? So self-actualization. So even in organizations, even in our normal organizations, or if you take most of the Japanese, they could particularly tired out. See, they could bring most of their employees to the level of self-actualization. See, they don't feel that they are working by the working to increase their wages or promotion. Nothing like that. They said they have a highest level of esprit de corps. Whenever your employees have high amount of esprit de corps, that means most of the employees are working on a self-actualization level. That means they are no more worried about whether, like whether the management is really recognizing for every act of theirs. See, sometimes people have the attitude they do a small thing and then they expect the management to say congrats or thank you. People like who have reached self-actualization, they are not worried about whether the really at every step whether the management is thanking them or not, or whether it is increasing their wages or not, because the management could believe, it could convince people that they are there for a purpose. All right. So just like the kind of guys who are working for Taliban, like they are on a mission mode, or those people who are working for other religious institutions like Roman Catholic Church or Protestant Church or Hindu Dharma. Most of them are in a self-actualization. Right? They think that if they do excellently here, they can sit beside the God. Okay. So, so self-actualization is the highest form of. But here, as we have said yesterday in the last class, that not everyone will follow the same hierarchical. So, like I told you now about Dasarath Maji, he might have got only satisfied with the physiological needs, but he directly went to self-actualization mode. Once he found that he couldn't help his wife during her pregnancy, he resolved himself, saying that I will single-handedly build a shortest route, even if it means removing a portion of the hill. And he never thought that once he will be featured in one of the programs of American Satyameva Jayate. Right? He is not, in fact, worried about it, or he is not aware of it. But he is on a self-accusation mode. Okay? So he has not gone through this hierarchy. That is only the, if at all some criticism has to be thrown on this Maslow's hierarchy of needs, not everyone will follow this hierarchy of needs theory. Then we will move to the Herzberg two-factor theory. So here, Frederick Herzberg, his full name, Frederick Herzberg, what he says is, he says that job satisfaction, like he says there are two-factor theory he called it is, he says there are two factors in human motivation. One is hygiene factors and another is motivator factors. So hygiene factors means the, like as the word depicts, it is about working conditions, co-worker relations, policies and rules, supervisory quality, base wage and salary. So what happens is, as the slides explains, right, improving the hygiene factors decreases the job satisfaction, dissatisfaction. So hygiene factors. So if you provide hygiene factors, it may not motivate people, but it will at least reduce the job dissatisfaction. But whereas, if you provide motivator factors like achievement, recognition, responsibility, the work itself, advancement, personal growth, what Herzberg says is they really drive the people to do great things. There will be a lot of job satisfaction. So improving the motivator factors increases job satisfaction. Improving the hygiene factors decreases job dissatisfaction. So actually, whereas see, if you compare Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory and Herzberg's two-factor theory, actually Herzberg, he just only uh, like reassigned he only classified whatever Herzberg has said. Say, for example, if you look at here, most of the hygiene factors, what Herzberg says, whatever these factors, as per Herzberg, he says they are
They
hygiene
reduce
factors.
job dissatisfaction.
So, if you provide hygiene factors, there will not be any job dissatisfaction, but it may not motivate people to give their best. Whereas if you take hygiene factors, where motivational factors, he says these are all the motivator factors. Right? So, what he says is, if you want to really drive people to give them a sense of achievement through their job description, respect them, give confidence, and let him show his individuality through the kind of work he delivers. So, here, Herzberg only rearranged them or classified them in a different format, but essentially, it is almost he divided the Maslow's hierarchy of needs into two categories, that is hygiene factors and then motivator factors. So how is this theory?
Sir, this is also not fully correct, sir. For example, if we take the Dutch worker that F.W. Taylor has experimented on, he did not use any motivation factors to be
Yes.
exact.
Yes.
He used only hygiene factors, but still he could motivate him.
Yes.
But
Yes.
for that era, that might be okay. But in present era, Herzberg's is more appropriate because working condition, co-worker relationship, every company offers. So that won't motivate, just it will demotivate in absence of them.
Yes, as you say, correct, Satish. Like here, what we see, actually Herzberg has made this model after surveying middle and top level executives. So naturally, middle level and top level executives, they almost take these working conditions, co-worker relations, they take it as granted. So most of these middle level and top level executives, they look for a sense of achievement, recognizing them for their contribution, giving a responsibility, and then work itself should be interesting, and there should be a career advancement. Then there is a personal growth also. All right. So what people say is, particularly in India, you can still motivate people even by providing hygiene factors. Because in India, most of the working population, they have found that an average worker in India spends around 85% of his income on basic needs, on hygiene factors only, like roti, kapda, and makan. Only 15% is left for him to enjoy certain luxuries of item like having a dish TV or having a cell phone or having a decent house. So naturally, money is still is a driving force in India. Like in fact, like if you see observe your seniors, those who are attending the campus interviews, I think they are mostly worried about the pay package rather than what kind of sense of achievement or other kind of stuff. So this Herzberg two-factor theory is works well at the top level management and middle level management, not for entry level kind of situations. So that is the criticism on Herzberg two-factor theory. So now coming to the Victor Room's expectancy theory. So this is again this is a Victor Room. In fact, like it is something. It is like F is equal to MA kind of formula he has used. So here motivational force is equal to M means expectancy into valency. So expectancy like M is equal to expectancy into valency. So just like it is equivalent to. So your drive to do something depends on how much expectancy you have on that outcome and and then valency, how much value you give to that outcome. Say for example, like here it is written, person exerts work effort to achieve task performance and realize work related outcomes. So like for example, only when E and B are high, then only there is a more motivation to do certain things. Like if one of them is low, then he may not be well motivated to do something. So it depends on the expectancy. Can I achieve the desired level of task performance? Right? Say for example, like some of you might be say in doubt whether to sit for IAS, let us say, whether to sit for Indian Administrative Service depends on how much value, what is the expectancy you have. Like that means, if I appear, can I fare well? Whether have the necessary IQ or the necessary knowledge with you. So, and then valency, how much value you give to the IAS itself. Like for example, like so if you are a research minded kind of guy, then your valency is zero. Even though your expectancy, see you have a good grades and everything, but still, since you are not interested in the administrative side, you may not sit for the IAS. So you sit for IAS only when your expectancy as well as valency is high. See, that expectancy may be on maybe it may be a bit of false expectations, but still, the drive to do something depends on how much, what is the your expectation, like whether you have your own assessment, now you self judge about your capacity to do certain things, and then valency, how much value you give. So similarly, your motivation to apply for a campus job, whether to apply for software, right? So that again depends on how much you value the core jobs and how much you value the software side. So that is, so instrumentality means it is the link between task performance and rewards. Like, so how I will prepare. how I going to, what is the kind of instrument you are going to use? Like I'll take coaching, like the motivation to sit for cat. So like whether you have the necessary resources, whether you can pay the coaching fees or not, whether to ask mother and father even at this stage to finance your preparations, all this. So ever motivational force to do certain things, like it is a combination of expectancy into instrumentality into balance. So if either I or E or V is low, motivation will be low. Right? So this is so Victor Room's theory of motivation. So how is this theory?
It's
Whether it is
better than before two, sir.
huh?
It's better than before two other ones.
Okay. You think it is better than the previous two? Yeah.
Yes, sir. There is one more thing,
Uh,
like in our educational also, like motivation to attend a class, like a professor's class, depends on two things. One thing is whether we understand or not. What
uh,
professor says, we are able to understand or not. Like
mm,
if we tell seriously complicated things, then we
mm,
don't understand. So the motivation drops. If
mm.
we understand clearly but we are not gaining any knowledge much, like it's only basics only, then
Uh,
our motivation will be down.
okay.
Multiplication of both should be there, no sir. Like we have to learn something new, and
Mm.
also we have to able to understand,
Yes.
like that.
Okay. So what are the drawbacks of this? Any you see any drawbacks of this expectancy theory?
It don't work on every person. Like the level of employee matters, because a worker may not see much of outcome. He only
Hmm.
sees
Actually,
the.
yeah. Just 1 minute. Huh? So here the problem with this the problem with this theory is it is realistic, but at the same time people say it is not practical, so much practical. In the sense, trying to understand each and everybody about his expectancy and valency and the kind of instrumentalities he will be using to link between past performance and see, that is a bit uh, difficult to implement in practice. So theory is very good. As you say, it is uh, good when compared with Maslow's and because human needs their expectancy will keep on changing. But at the same time, they say like it is a bit difficult to do because you have to then compare each and every individual. Say like for example, this may be implementable at a very small scale industry where you have say 50 employees, less than say 100 employees. But when you take a organization like Amazon, where you have 4 lakh employees all over the world, implementing Victor Room's expectancy theory of motivation is a bit difficult because you can't track each individual and his expectancy and valency, like whether he's interested in promotion or he's interested in a challenging kind of job, or whether he's at a very basic level, like where he is just satisfied with the hygiene needs. Certain people, they have some very simple needs. So providing them higher level of needs, they are not interested. But at the same time, configuring the motivating them as per their expectancy and valency is a bit difficult at the individual level to implement in an organization, particularly in big organization. So that is one of the criticism on this particular Victor Room's expectancy theory. Okay. Any doubts?
No, sir.
And then coming to Mike Leland's human motivation theory. So this man says there are only three kinds of needs. That is need for achievement, need for power, and a need for affiliation. So and and it again depends on the individual whether a particular individual is has a higher affiliation needs or whether he is a power monger or he's a his own goal directed kind of guy, like in terms of need for achievement. So here, see, like like the guy with a high achievement need, he thinks that must win at any cost, must be on top and receive credit, right? Whereas the guy who has a low achievement fears failure, avoids responsibility. Similarly, like if you take a guy who has a higher power need, desires control of everyone and everything, exaggerates own position and resources. He pretends to have a lot of power and then he pretends to have higher resources. Whereas the guy who has a low need power is mostly he prefers a subordinate job, minimizes own position and resources. So he'll be very conservative and he's a bit meek kind of, right? And then whereas a guy with higher need for affiliation, so he demands blind loyalty and harmony, does not tolerate disagreement, and a guy who has a low affiliation remains aloof, maintains social distance, right? So, like for example, like normally need for achievement, normally we actually we see that in self-actualization kind of people. Whereas need for power, in a way, like this is also a kind of modification of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like for example, need for affiliation. This is what is the other name Maslow has given for this? Need for affiliation.
Belongingness.
Belongingness, or you can say like acceptance needs. So acceptance needs, then self-esteem needs, and then self need for achievement means this guy is self-actualization. So he must win at any cost. But see, like, but still there are some variations here. So even though we say like he must be on top and receive credit, so sometimes that taking credit may not be there in certain people, but they try to win at any cost. Like Dasarath Maji, he was successful in making way through. He plowed through that mountain and then realized he is right. So here, like each, for example, need for achievement, you have to select that kind of people. Like there is a separate test for identifying these, like where you fit in. Like Mike Leland actually did he has come to this particular model, human motivation theory, after studying people in Kakinada in Andhra Pradesh. So mostly who were those people were mostly in transport business, lorry owners and that kind of stuff, right? So in fact, like most of his study is concentrated on Indian environment, but that too in Andhra Pradesh. So so this is again there is a bit of controversy because it is a bit complex and normally the preferred the, the preferred the preferred what do you call like for, normally for uh, those who have need for achievement, they are mostly belong to category of innovators, those who have a lot of creativity, right? Like mostly painters. If you take a painters, like the innovators, they have this kind of need for achievement. Power, those who guys like normally these kind of guys, they you say like they join organizations like IAS, law, right? So they become politicians. Like those guys who have high, uh, whereas those who have low power kind of need, they follow, they become followers, rather good followers rather than leaders. Similarly, affiliation needs. See, normally this those who have high affiliation needs, now. See, they don't actually they they want to be part of a group. See, they are not interested in power. They are not interested in achieving certain great things. They want to lead a normal life. Like just like from of our parents, na, they they rejected the promotions because they want to stay where they are. They don't want to take any leadership roles. They are not interested in achieving something in life. They want a very, very steady kind of life. So those people belong to this. That means they have high need for affiliation. Right? But again, you can't pick people just in the model that McClelland has come to understanding. Right? So this is another kind of model. It is again a kind of a different version of packaged in a different way. The motivational theory, right? From it is something similar to Maslow, but arranged in a different format. And then here we have the last but one, that is B.F. Skinner's reinforcement theory of motivation. So this man actually he says you do certain things based on what kind of reinforcement you receive, either for doing good job or bad job. All right. So actually, B.F. Skinner did a lot of experiments on pigeons. So what he says is, like for example, like what he did is he has taken, he started experimenting on pigeons. The idea here is what drives them to do certain work. So what he did is he took a pigeon and then
Sir, bird, sir.
huh?
Bird, pigeon, bird,
Yes,
bird only.
bird
Okay,
only.
okay.
So he took the pigeon bird and then he like what bird is supposed to do is it has to press a lever. That is the work that is given to it. But you know, like every time it presses a lever, it is supposed to get a toffee, some food. So, so what happens is whenever it feels hungry only, it will press the lever. That means for you are rewarding, you are reinforcing the reward based on how it does a certain kind of action. So, what the kind of conclusions that B.F. Skinner has drawn from those pigeon experiments is like the reward should not be consistent, or like you should see, for example, these pigeons, once their stomach is full, they were no more pressing that lever because their stomach is so. What Skinner instead, what he did is to make the pigeons to continuously press the lever. He was, for every pressing of the lever, he is not rewarding. Like the rewarding is random a bit. So at least say like if it tries 4 or 5 times, then he will get a reward. And sometimes it may be delivered in the next with one hit, or it may get the reward only after 5 or 6 attempts. So like this. So after seeing the behavior of this pigeon, he has come to like he says like you can modify the behavior of the human being also by giving positive reinforcement or through punishment. So like you depending on like what kind of driving forces you want to bring in or restraining forces you have to bring in. Like if you want to restrain that guy, put a punishment. If you want to reinforce, give reinforcement. So he has come with this reinforcement theory. But anyway, see, we are not pigeons now, so it may be working at a lower level of in any organization. So not at a higher level of middle level and top level organization structures. Okay, so that is the feedback on this B.F. Skinner's theory of motivation. Just 1 minute. Huh? So here, so this is the last theory of motivation. So here we have this is called as McGregor's theory of theory X and theory Y. Right. So here, those who believe those who come under theory X normally they dislike work, find it boring, they'll avoid if we can, and the direction must be forced and coerced into compliance. So whereas if they have a good attitude, na, that means need to work, want to take an interest, we can enjoy it, kind of guys. So those are theory Y guys, right? So whereas there are people like who doesn't take any, they don't have that self drive. Like they must be forced, coerced into compliance. Whereas by guys who have a kind of theory Y kind of aptitude, they direct themselves towards an accepted target. Okay. Similarly, when it comes to responsibility, people with the theory Y, they thrive on responsibility. They enjoy that taking responsibility and doing work. Whereas here, need to be directed, avoid responsibility. He will say, no, sir, please excuse me. I can't take this responsibility. Don't put me under pressure kind of guys. Motivation. Here, motivation is by fear, lack of money, lack of job security. Whereas this kind of guys, like motivated by the desire of self-development and to contribute to the world. So, and then creativity, like those guys with the theory X, they have little creativity except when getting around roots, right? Whereas creativity, highly creative when given recognition and opportunity. So here what McGregor says is, why he, see normally those who are listening in this class, they might think that theory X is bad and theory Y is good. But McGregor stopped saying that. Why? Because there are work situations where people may not enjoy their work because there is no inherent pride in that kind of work. Like for example, you have worked in, you have spent your first year in hostels. People like who clean your toilets, bathrooms and toilets, those who serve dinner for you, lunch for you. See, where is the sense of pride in their work? Right? Neither they have a regular promotion, they don't have job security. Like, you know, in their mostly theory, it's kind of approach to them is probably works. Whereas theory Y normally works at a higher level of organ structures, like executives level, president and vice president level, general managers level. And normally only those with theory Y aptitude, they only go to higher and higher level. So here, one has to be aware. Like in a way, theory Y is a guy who has reached a kind of self-actualization. Right? Whereas theory X guy is still stuck at physiological and security needs. Right? So, but it is not that like, but if you can make every work where they can take pride in, that is, there is nothing like that. So in fact, like in Japan, most of them have what in every organization, like particularly in Toyota, they somehow, even theory X level of people, they have converted themselves into theory Y. By bringing a sense of belongingness, rewarding them appropriately, by bringing a very, very beautiful suggestion key. I was telling now, like if you take a company like Toyota, they annually receive around 1.6 million suggestions from the workers to improve their work process. If Toyota has beaten General Motors in automobile sector, success has not come simply like that. Right? So here, one of the reasons is Toyota people has converted most of their lower level workers into, they have brought them into theory Y situation where they started liking their job. There is a bit of sense of achievement because whatever the suggestions they are giving in improving the work process, they are appropriately rewarded, implemented, and celebrated. Celebration in the sense like, oh, this guy has gave this fantastic idea. Let us reward this guy. All right. So that is the kind of work environment they have created. So, in fact, like the whole Japanese society tries to make even a menial work to be there is a better sense of achievement in that. Say, for example, in certain movies, you see in Japanese movie, when people go to a restaurant, when this worker serves the dinner or lunch, they literally get up from the chair and salutes them. Bow to them, saying that you have done a great job. So that kind of environment that they have cultivated. Okay. So anyway, with this we have completed the series of motivation. So tomorrow, what we will do is we will have a discussion on Hackathon experiments. So this is a very interesting experiments that were done between 1924 and 32. Pay attention to this particular Hackathon experiment. It's very interesting experiment. Okay. So we will catch up tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed this class. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
So before I exit, is there any one or two questions?
We have minor at 4:30, sir.
Huh?
We have minor at 4:30, so we have.
Okay. Huh? Hello? Anyway, like we will catch up tomorrow.